Number 10. Memorial. Memorial is the name of this painting by Benton Spruance made in 1951. Now just looking at it makes me feel like it's haunted. I don't need any backstory here. The painting is of heads, skulls, and creepy masks on what appears to be a stake in the ground, and there's a cross in the background. It's just unsettling, and one of those faces has black eyes and only 2 teeth, and I do not like it. Benton was known for making creepy work, so it's not shocking that he came up with this. A number of guests and staff believe that this painting is haunted, and I believe them. Looking at the painting gives people an uneasy feeling, and apparently there was a cold spot on the painting, which was strange because it was never near a vent or window that could cause a breeze. The painting was a gift from John B. Turner, and I suspect that he knew it was haunted and wanted to get rid of it. Number 9. Scarab. Rumor has it that the Smithsonian is home to many ancient Egypt treasures and artifacts. Now, were they stolen? That's a completely different story, but it's said that these items are cursed. With all those movies about Egyptian curses, this really doesn't surprise me. They have a scarab believed to be from King Tut. If you don't know what a scarab was like me, they were popular amulets and impression seals in ancient Egypt. There are many of them, and through their inscriptions and typology, they are an important source of information for archaeologists and historians of the ancient world. Now, it's said that bad luck will follow anyone who touches King Tut's body or anything in his tomb, and since this belonged to him, I'd say watch out. In 1922, when King Tut's tomb itself was unearthed after more than 3,000 years of uninterrupted rest, some believe the pharaoh unleashed a powerful curse of death and destruction upon all who dared to disturb his eternal slumber. So since this scarab belonged to him, it's believed to actually be cursed from King Tut himself, so I'd stay away. Number 8. Mummified cat head. Yep, you heard that right, a mummified cat head. Only the head though, we don't know where the rest of the body is. It's a cat from 332 to 30 BC, it's wrapped in linen, and the ears are elaborately painted and modeled on the face of this cat mummy to give it the look of a real cat. The head contains a cat skull, and it was originally part of a complete cat mummy. Many workers have claimed to have seen a cat apparition move around this display. It's also seen around the halls and other exhibits as well. Now, it's probably just trying to find the rest of its body and doesn't mean any harm, but I feel like having a ghost cat though would be fun. Number 7. The Weeping Woman. The Weeping Woman, aka La Llorona, is a legend that has a wide variety of details and versions. In a typical version of the legend, a beautiful woman named Maria marries a rich man to whom she bears 2 children with. One day, Maria sees her husband with another woman, and in a fit of blind rage, she drowns their offspring in a river, which she immediately regrets. Unable to save them and consumed by guilt, she drowns herself as well, but is unable to enter the afterlife, forced to be in purgatory and roam this earth until she finds her offspring. The legend of La Llorona is deeply rooted in Mexican popular culture. It's said that if you hear her cries being distant, it means she's close, and if they seem close, that she's far. She usually has a loud cry, kind of like a coyote or owl. Now, the Smithsonian has this terrifying weeping woman doll, which currently isn't on display anymore, and I wonder why. Apparently it was freaking out too many guests out, and just by looking at it, I can see why. It's also been reported that staff have heard sounds of weeping coming from the doll at night. Some people believe that the weeping lady is trapped in that doll, and all I gotta say is that doll is in the wrong museum. It needs to go join Annabelle and other cursed objects in Ed and Lorraine Warren's museum. Number 6. The Creeping Doll. The creeping doll, which is a creepy doll, is a prototype for a doll that could crawl on its own. It was invented in 1871 by George P. Clark. The goal of the doll was to make it crawl exactly like human babies do. The doll's arm, legs, and heads were all made of plaster and were painted. They were then attached to a brass clockwork body and moved along with the gears. To be honest, it looks like that creepy robotic baby like the one in Toy Story Sid has. Does anyone else see the resemblance? Now, with this just being creepy already, it gets even creepier. Staff have seen this doll creep forward on its own, and others have heard the sounds of children laughing and crying near it. Although I think what's truly haunting about this is how many times I've said the word creepy. Number 5. Mary Todd Lincoln's dress. Mary Todd Lincoln served as the First Lady of the United States from 1861 until the death of her husband, President Abraham Lincoln, in 1865. Mary Todd married Abraham Lincoln on November 4, 1842 at her sister Elizabeth's home in Springfield, Illinois. She absolutely loved her husband and was completely distraught when he passed away. She was in mourning for a long time and stayed in widow's clothes up until her own death. Due to this, she never wore any of her other dresses. She had a beautiful purple dress lined with lace, and she gave this dress plus others to her family members. The purple dress was given to her cousin Elizabeth Todd Grimsley. In 1916, Elizabeth's son sold the dress to the Smithsonian, where it is today. It was to be a part of the First Lady's collection. Now, it's said though that this isn't any ordinary dress. Oh no, it is said that the dress is haunted by Mary Todd herself. People have heard weeping when they have been near this dress, which is just sad. There have also been times where people have claimed to see Mary Todd's apparition standing beside the dress. She means no harm, I guess she's just there to mourn, but that would be a sad and creepy sight. Number 4. The Hope Diamond. The Hope Diamond is gorgeous. It's 45.52 carats, it's a dark grayish blue, and the pendant surrounding the Hope Diamond contains 16 white diamonds. The necklace chain it's on also contains 45 white diamonds. Now, French monarchs, an heiress, and at least one unlucky postman have met misfortune after possessing it. The Hope Diamond's allegedly cursed reputation is well known. The diamond gets its name from the London banker Henry T. Hope, who purchased it in 1839. After Hope's death, the diamond passed through the hands of various owners. In America, the gem was feared to be lost in a shipwreck, but the rumor was refuted when the diamond appeared at a public auction in Paris on June 29, 1909. Evelyn Walsh McLean, a Washington, D.C. socialite and wife of the former owner of the Washington Post, acquired the diamond in 1911 for $180,000. Now, she too suffered the curse of the diamond as her husband died in a mental institution, her eldest son died in a car accident, and her daughter took too many sleeping pills. She believed in the curse, but she continued to wear the diamond and would not sell it for fear of bringing bad luck to someone else, which is really considerate if you think about it. After Evelyn's death in 1947, the diamond was found along with $4 million worth of other jewels stored in shoeboxes in her bedroom. Then Henry Harry Winston, a leading American jeweler and gem dealer, bought the diamond from her estate in 1949, and in 1958 he donated the diamond to the Smithsonian Institution where it is today. Number 3. Black Aggie. Black Aggie is the name given to a statue formerly placed on the grave of General Felix Angus in Druid Ridge Cemetery in Pikesville, Maryland. Beginning with its installation in 1926, it was surrounded by many urban legends. These included that the spirits of individuals buried at Druid Ridge will annually convene at the statue, that no grass would grow on the ground where the statue's shadow would lie during the daytime, and that the statue would animate itself during the night, whether by physically moving or by showing glowing red eyes. Those who see her eyes are said to have their lives ended by her, or she will cause you to go blind. Oh, and one last thing, if you sit on the statue's lap at midnight, you will die in 2 weeks. So, you know, that's cool. Due to these urban legends, it led to much unwelcomed attention towards the statue. Many people were caught breaking into the cemetery at night to visit it, and the pedestal was frequently vandalized. So in response, the Angus family, disturbed by the attention the statue received, donated it to the Smithsonian in 1967. I know what you're thinking, it's just a statue, Emily, it can't hurt me. Well, apparently there are real stories about this statue taking people's lives. One man put a cigarette out on the statue, which is just disrespectful to begin with, and he was later found dead due to him getting pew-pewed in the head, if you know what I mean. Another man was found dead at the foot of the statue, and no one knows his cause of death. So if I were you, I'd stay far, far away from Black Aggie. Number 2. Abraham Lincoln's hat. Yes, the Smithsonian has acquired one of Honest Abe's hats, but just not any hat, the one he died in. So of course, if you have an item of clothing that someone died in, I'm sure it's going to be haunted. The last time he put on this hat was to go to Ford's Theater in April 1865. After he died, his hat and everything from Ford's Theater was preserved. In 1867, it made its way to the Smithsonian, and it was originally put in the basement and not on display because they thought there was too much excitement at the time and kept it quiet. The Smithsonian didn't even reveal that they had the hat until 1893. It's now one of the Smithsonian's most treasured objects, and obviously it's haunted by Abe himself. A number of people have seen his apparition around the museum, and does that mean that him and Mary haunt the Smithsonian together? Cause that's a couple goals. And coming in at number 1 is the founder. Now this isn't any type of art or artifact, but it's said that James Smithson, the founding donor of the Smithsonian Institute, has been spotted wandering the organization's castles, home to its administrative and information headquarters, on numerous occasions. This starts to make a lot of sense when you learn that James's remains have been kept at the museum since 1904. James' frequent appearances were supposedly causing such a ruckus that in 1973, his remains were briefly dug up for investigation. His skeleton was in fact still safely in the coffin though, but there's nothing to say of his spirit. Other motives for him being dug up might have been to search for documents rumored to have been buried with him, but I want to think it's because they actually wanted to make sure that he was dead. He's not the only ghostly worker found wandering around though, as it's said that other former employees' apparitions have been spotted too, which is scary.
Starting off, we have The Stagecraft by Laura P. This is an interesting one because it's actually an interpretation of a real-life photograph taken by the photographer James Kidd. James hadn't noticed it at first. Once the picture was developed, there was what looked to be a headless man standing on a log beside the old wagon he took a photo of. James even took the picture to experts to have them confirm that the picture hadn't been altered in any way, and apparently, at least according to everyone he spoke to, it hadn't. Artist Laura P. created oil paintings based on photographs and felt compelled to recreate Kidd's stagecoach photo. She described feeling a deep sense of dread almost as soon as she started the piece, and once it was finished, she hung it at a local office where bizarre occurrences began being reported. The painting would be crooked every morning and would have to be readjusted. Things would go missing in the office. Laura was urged to take down the paintings, so she decided to move it into her own home, where she would report even more eerie occurrences. Laura began hearing strange noises in her home, like knocks and footsteps. Objects would be found knocked over, doors would be seemingly opened on their own. Even some of Laura's friends would report strange occurrences after visiting her home. Her neighbor snapped photos of the painting, and when he returned home, he claimed to have seen a white, hazy figure out of the corner of his eye. He came running back to Laura's house, saying he never wanted to touch the pictures again. The Hands Resist Him by Bill Stoneham. Completed in 1972, this piece is notorious for being one of the most cursed paintings in modern history. All of you probably have heard of this one already. Most of the dark rumors surrounding this painting began on eBay, where the seller claimed that the painting was haunted, and that the boy and girl in the painting would move around at night. Word began to spread across the internet about this strange eBay listing, and some of the people who looked at the painting reported feeling uncomfortable or even ill. It was even revealed that the first critic to review the painting, as well as the owner of the gallery who first displayed the piece, both passed away within 1 year of first seeing it. Now, I can definitely see why this painting could conjure up some creepy feelings in people. It's an unsettling piece of art. The way the boy seems to stare straight at you with the odd doll-like girl beside him standing in front of a window with a void of pure blackness on the other side, except for these small hands that look as if they're attempting to break through the glass. Stoneham's inspiration for the painting comes from Carl Jung's theory of the collective unconscious, that the collective experience of those who have lived before you have influence over you from the day that you're born, and that we're closest to this collective unconscious when we dream. Stoneham stated when talking about his inspiration for the painting, the hands are the other lives, the glass door, that thin veil between waking and dreaming. The girl/doll is the imagined companion or guide through this realm. Number 8, The Crying Boy by Bruno Amarillo, aka Giovanni Bragolin. The painting, or series of paintings really, started getting mass produced in the 50s, but in the mid-80s, they started gaining a dark reputation of being cursed. The origins of this superstition began in the mid-80s when a series of unexplained fires occurred in homes across England. Surprisingly, amidst the ashes and devastation, the Crying Boy paintings were found intact in numerous affected houses. The disturbing pattern led to the widespread belief that the painting itself had a malevolent force causing the fires and bringing misfortune upon those who possessed it. Some actually claimed that these paintings were responsible for causing the fire in their homes. And adding to the mystery, several owners claimed that their misfortunes persisted even after attempting to dispose of the painting. These paintings were just really hard to burn, apparently. The only question I have at the end of the day, though, is why anyone would want to hang a painting of a crying kid on their wall. No offense to the artist or anything, but why? Next up on the list we have Love Letters by Richard King, painted in 1990. This painting is actually a replica of Charles Trevor Garland's piece of the same name. The artwork depicts a young girl believed to be Samantha Houston, the daughter of a prominent local family. Legend has it that Samantha fell to her death while staying at the Driscoll Hotel in Austin, Texas, where the painting still hangs today. Some guests at the hotel claim to feel uneasy around the painting. It seems as if her eyes follow you around. There have even been reports of people fainting upon looking at it for too long. It's also said that if you again stare at the painting for a particularly long time, her expression begins to sort of change, or that she even slightly shifts her position. The Dead Mother by Edvard Munch. Munch is known for his particularly harrowing pieces. His first famous work is, of course, The Scream, an image that is immediately recognizable, but this is his only work that's said to actually be haunted. Let's just start with the title, shall we? Dead Mother. Probably not going to be a very happy painting. The piece depicts a child standing next to her deceased mother's bed, who's believed to have passed away from tuberculosis. Munch also painted multiple versions of this piece, but the concept is always the same. A mother lays dead in her bed, and in the foreground we see a young girl looking straight at us, her hands covering her ears with a look of shock and devastation on her face. It's easy to see why a painting like this could develop such a dark reputation. It's inherently unsettling and sad. Some have said that the eyes of the child seem to follow those who look at the painting, but the creepiest legend behind this artwork is those that claim to hear the slight rustling of the bed sheets when standing close to the piece. The Portrait of Bernardo de Galvez. First of all, the artist is unknown, so that adds a mysterious layer to the whole thing. The painting depicts the Spanish military leader Bernardo de Galvez, who aided American forces in the Revolutionary War. It hangs in the hallway of Hotel Galvez in Galveston, Texas, which looks really nice, by the way. Anyway, this painting really looks like your classic haunted house kind of portrait where the eyes follow you as you walk, which some guests and staff at the hotel claim happens with this one. Some guests have also reported seeing orbs and feeling cold spots near the painting. There's also a rumor that if you try to take a picture of the portrait without asking for Galvez's permission, the picture will come out distorted or out of focus. I'm not sure how this would go with modern technology that we had today, but if I ever find myself in this hotel, probably won't unfortunately, but one can dream, and if I do, just running straight over to that painting to try and snap me a picture before even checking in. heading straight for it. Number 4, The Rain Woman by Svetlana Telets. Telets had described feeling as if someone or something had been watching her for about 6 months before she sat down to create this piece. She also describes feeling like her hand was being guided by some other force when she created the painting in 1996, and that it took just 5 hours to complete. Multiple people who purchased the painting from her would end up returning it, describing the unsettling presence the piece would have in their homes. People would complain about having insomnia or getting terrible nightmares. They would feel as if they were being watched and experience intense negative emotions. And I gotta say, out of all the paintings on this list, this one kind of gets to me the most. There's something so haunting about it. I feel like if I look at it for too long, she's gonna like a little smile at me or something like that. The distorted body, the strange hat, the dark gloomy backdrop. It's a freaky painting. I don't know what else to say. Imagine having this hanging on your wall, getting up in the middle of the night to like grab a glass of water or something and just seeing the silhouette of the Rain Woman staring back at you in the darkness. No. No, no, no. The Portrait of Henriette Nelson by William Johnson. In 1816, Henrietta Nelson met a tragic end when she fell down a staircase in her residence, Yaxley Hall, located in the English town of Eye. Following her demise, in accordance with her final wishes, she was laid to rest in a mausoleum situated on the property. However, as time passed, new owners took over the estate and destroyed the mausoleum, opting to relocate Henrietta's remains to a nearby church. And since then, a local legend has emerged claiming that Henrietta's spirit has been lingering on the grounds, persistently seeking a way back to her intended final resting place. According to reports, a painting of Henrietta created by William Johnson has become a vessel for her kind of ethereal presence. It is said that her ghost accompanies the portrait even when it is removed from the house. Witnesses have described unsettling occurrences like her expression slowly changing in the painting, as well as sightings of a kind of ghostly figure draped in the same attire as Henrietta, wandering the estate's grounds, pale and translucent. Alright, this next one is pretty famous. The Anguished Man. The artist is unknown. This painting, as it's named, depicts an anguished man. Unlike some of the pieces on this list that aren't necessarily scary without context, this one is immediately unsettling. So the man is just kind of stripped of all discernible features. No eyes, no mouth, just black voids, turning him almost into a vessel of pure terror. There's an urban legend that the artist painted part of the picture with his own blood before taking his life. The current owner, Sean Robinson, was given the painting by his grandmother, who kept the piece in her attic. She would tell him stories of disturbing sounds she would hear from her attic, like wailing and crying in the night. Robinson has said that he's experienced disturbing things in his home since taking the painting. His son told him he fell down the stairs and felt as if he were being pushed by unseen hands. Objects in the home would sometimes move by themselves. It's definitely an unsettling piece of artwork. And coming in at number 1, we have Pogo the Clown by John Wayne Gacy. I'd definitely take a portrait of John Wayne over John Wayne Gacy any day. No surprise why this one is said to have an aura of darkness around it. It's a portrait of Pogo the Clown, John Wayne Gacy's alter ego, which he actually painted himself. It's really icky. Not something I'd ever want in my home, but a musician bought it in 2001 apparently, and pretty soon after owning it, his dog passed away, and then his mother was diagnosed with cancer. It could be a complete coincidence, of course, but then a friend of his took the painting, and that friend's neighbor then died in a car crash soon after, and finally a second friend offered to take the piece, and not so long after attempted to take their own life.
Starting us off at number 10 is Madame Lalaurie. Honestly, this hoe finds herself in every video, I swear to God. But anyway, we should all know who she is by now, the New Orleans socialite that tortured and mutilated almost all of her slaves. Well, long after Delphine fled her mansion on Royal Street sometime in the 70s, major renovations were underway to turn it into luxury apartments. In 1997, the new owners thought it would be a great idea to get a portrait made of Madame Lalaurie because she was such a wonderful person. Why not remember her forever? Not. Once once the painting was placed inside the building, everything started going wrong. Many believe a certain darkness attached itself to the painting, or perhaps it was the dark soul of the woman herself. The painting would move on the wall by itself, it would rock so much that the canvas would free itself from the frame. People living there said they felt unnerved anytime they were near the portrait, and almost all of them used to hear echoes of voices, cold touches on their skin, and the smell of smoke. Just a side note, the reason Madame Lalaurie fled is because her mansion had a huge house fire, so that's where the smell of smoke makes sense here. Residents had items go missing, one even said the painting talked to her, and footsteps would follow her around her apartment. Clothes would get bundled in the fireplace but not burn, carpenters would see a grey lady appear out of nowhere. After countless paranormal reports, the owners finally returned the portrait to the original artist. Coming in at number 9 is Ivan the Terrible and his son Ivan. Painted in 1885 by Ilya Repin, a Russian realist painter, he was known as a mystical artist, and honestly I'd say hella cursed artist, not mystical. After painting the piece, Ilya was constantly tired and his right arm couldn't paint anymore. He fell into deep depression, but he had to learn how to paint with his left hand instead. Just to clarify, the painting itself depicts fiction, the scene never took place. Russian icon painter Abram Balashov saw the painting for the first time and launched into a hysterical frenzy. He cut the painting with a knife multiple times, saying stop the bloodshed, and afterwards he was admitted to a psychiatric hospital, despite having no signs of a mental illness before looking at the picture. But the curse isn't just tied to the painting, it's tied to Ilya himself. His subjects are said to die after he paints them. Take the barge haulers on the Volga. Many healthy men in that painting all died after it was completed. Other subjects like Mussorgsky, Pirogov, actor Mercy Darz-Hanto all died after being painted as well. That's just way too many people to be a coincidence. I feel like it's 100% not. The artist himself ended up dying after doing a painting called A Man with an Evil Eye, which was of his cousin who was a known wizard in his town. It's said he died because of his relative. At number 8 we have The Suicide Girl. The artist of this painting is unknown, but she was a Korean teenager living in Japan. It's said she drew the picture and posted it online shortly before committing suicide. When the story broke out, it spread like wildfire, and hundreds of Korean forums started saying the picture was cursed by the soul of the artist. The blue eyes of the girl draw you in, and within them you see this sadness. Some say the artist herself had so much sadness it cursed the picture, and others say she painted her sadness into the painting, and that's why it evokes sadness in whoever's looking at it. But no matter what, no one can stare into her eyes for more than 5 minutes. There have been reports of people having committed suicide after doing so, and honestly even me looking at it online, there was something about her eyes that just drew me in. Maybe it was just me being psychological, I don't know. Others also say the picture changes as you look at it, and that her eye bags get darker or her lips curve into a taunting smile. Filling our number 7 slot is Mrs. Bell. Now that's not the real name of the painting, but it was painted by Cyril Roberts. The story goes that Heel House, the mansion belonging to Alan Smith, was plagued with the sightings of a pale Edwardian figure accompanied by the music of Chopin. Anyone who unfortunately witnessed her ran for the hills because seeing a ghost is bad enough, but seeing one with an eerie soundtrack is even worse. Many people saw her floating around surrounded by a blue haze. At points she would just be standing at the foot of Alan's bed. Weirdly enough, the owner of a local junk shop approached Alan saying she had something for him that should be returned to its rightful home. When he looked at what she had given him, he recognized it straight away. It was a portrait of a woman playing the piano, which basically matched the apparition he had seen around his home. After doing some research, he found that Mrs. Bell was the wife of an Argentine beef rancher, and they both lived in one of the bedrooms at Heel House in the early 1900s. She was a very cultured woman, but tragedy hit her when she went bankrupt and was forced to sell all her possessions, including the portrait. But now that the portrait is back in the house, the curse and the haunting has stopped altogether, and they lived happily ever after. The end of video. Now at number 6 is The Unknown Painting. While the title is unknown, the artist is the famous Yuko Tatushima. Yuko is an artist and performer, yet her talents lend themselves quite well to paranormal and supernatural purposes. Most of her work is provocative and just quite unsettling to look at. The particular picture I'm talking about depicts a black and red scratched background with a woman, I want to say woman, but really it's more of a thing, in the middle. The eyes are massive, they're not human-like, and its neck is quite long. There's nothing really sinister about the painting despite it being creepy. And the thing is smiling, right? I mean, there's that. But I don't know if that's a smiling through the pain smile or I'm gonna kill you smile. The painting is quite cursed, and that's also a well-known fact. It's meant to induce feelings of suicide on those who look at it. Coming in at number 5 is the Lady Ossington. Viscountess Ossington built the Coffee Palace located on Beastmarket Hill back in 1882. She built it for the good of society, and it was aimed at travellers who wanted a place to stay without the temptation of alcohol on the premise. Lady Ossington managed the establishment till her death and was meant to be succeeded by her trustees, who would continue her crusade against the demon drink. Honestly, I feel like she probably got way too drunk one night and was like, I'm never drinking again, ended up being the only person in the world ever actually sticking to that. But anyway, moving on, by the 60s, a court decided the Coffee Palace wasn't as charitable as advertised, since Lady Ossington's heirs were the real beneficiaries of the Coffee Palace, so they were like, that's not on, and sold the place. Inside the Coffee Palace, however, hung an oil portrait of Lady Ossington herself, which many believe is cursed and haunted by the woman. It's said that after the place was sold, the portrait started flying off the wall, mimicking Lady Ossington's disgust over what happened to her business. At number 4 is Pogo the Clown. John Wayne Gacy, the serial killer and rapist who himself dressed up as clowns and performed at events and children's parties, painted this piece while he was on death row. People even called him Pogo the Clown, so many people believe his spirit still haunts the painting because bad things have happened to every single person that owned it. Musician Nicky Stone bought the painting but got rid of it nearly just as fast because after it entered his house, his dog died and his mother was diagnosed with cancer. I mean, it could purely be coincidental, but it could also totally not be. Even Johnny Depp bought the painting but somehow contracted a severe pathological phobia of clowns and ditched the painting as well. May I just add, why would you want to buy the painting done by a serial killer anyway? Why even bring that into your house? There's no need. There's no need. Filling our number 3 slot is Rokeby Venus. Painted by Diego Velázquez between 1647 and 1651, the painting shows the goddess Venus lying on a settee with her bare body back to us. She's looking into a mirror held by her son Cupid. Despite the photo being well lit, the reflection of Venus in the mirror is dark and troubled, and she looks super pale. Paler than herself, not her reflection, if that makes sense. Most of the owners of the painting were killed or became majorly in debt. It never stayed at a museum for too long, and it just hopped from place to place. The worst incident was in March of 1914 when Mary Richardson attacked the painting with a meat cleaver, leaving extremely deep damaging rips all across her neck and back. Despite claiming it was a statement on behalf of the suffragette movement, many debate that and think the painting itself caused something inside of her to snap. Now at number 2 is The Witch Girl. This portrait of a young girl came from Casa de Green and was bought by a Spanish father who saw it and was instantly mesmerized by it, saying he couldn't take his eyes off her and the girl couldn't take her eyes off him either. She literally couldn't take her eyes off him. He even claimed the eyes of the girl followed him around the room until he gave in and bought her. When he finally brought the painting home, he found that at night he always found a grey silhouette on the side of the canvas. It was almost guarding the painting. Then he believed the painting could have possibly belonged to Madame Lalaurie and that she was one of her slaves. The grey figure in front of the painting is the girl from the picture, protecting herself from any other atrocities regardless of her being dead or alive. Because honestly, let's face it, if she was Madame Lalaurie's slave in real life, that was an atrocity in and of itself. The father who bought the painting titled it The Witch Girl because her tears are falling at the exact same rate, which was too outlandish and otherworldly for him to conceive of, so he assumed she must have been a witch. And finally, at number 1 is The Faceless Women. Again, that's not the title of the painting, I just gave it the title based on what it is, but it was painted by Carrigan. Carrigan's an online user of Feasters who mostly paints pieces involving Yuri-style bondagado, which is basically just a fancy term that means lesbian bondage. Now the painting depicts 4 girls, a blonde girl in the middle with rope around her mouth and décolletage, and surrounding her are 3 other girls, with the one right behind her having her hand on the middle girl's head, whilst the other 2 on either side of her have one hand each on the middle girl's neck, kind of like a power move. But the creepy thing about the 3 women is that they have no faces. They have black hollows for eyes, but then no nose, no mouth, no nothing. It's like they're all wearing white masks almost. Carrigan made up a fictional story to go along with the painting, but many say they simply can't stand looking at it. There's something unnerving about it that irks everyone who sees it, which really makes no sense because it's not even based on a real person. I mean, there's no spirit or soul cursing it, and yet it's cursed. The artists themselves said they had trouble finishing the piece, citing feelings of anxiety, suicidal thoughts, and paranoia. But hey, at least you did it in the end.